I'm Bill Duvall. I'm on the board here at the King Barn Dairy Museum. A couple weeks ago, Henry King from Mount Airy called me and said that he wanted to donate a Burrell milk testing centrifuge to the Dairy Museum and some other items.
Well, the centrifuge belonged to the Walkers.
Oh, okay.
I cleaned it up and dug it out of the old boiler room that had been sitting in there for 75 and 80 years.
Okay.
And, but this is a joint venture between Buddy and I.
Okay. And anyway, so I decided that they should come down if they would, and we would do a little program on how was butterfat and milk production by a cow done? How was it measured and tested? Anyway, this is October 29th, 2022, and the following guests are here. Mr. Stuart Walker is right here on my left, a longtime dairy farmer from Montgomery County. On the left of him is Mr. Jim Pope, who's a retired Montgomery County teacher and taught agriculture, and in his earlier career he was a milk tester. And then is Henry King, born and raised in Damascus area, and did milk testing for about 8 years. And so today we're going to talk about that process. To start off with, the question is, why was milk testing done? And I'm going to ask Stuart Walker if he would say why a farmer wanted his cows tested. Stuart?
Well, at a very early age, I was interested in registered Holstein cattle, and for both type and high production. And the only way to achieve that would be to test and weigh the cow's milk and record all that, so you knew which cows in your herd you wanted to raise offspring from and which cows that you wanted to discontinue in the herd. And so milk testing was the only primary way of getting that job done.
Thank you, Stuart. Henry and Jim. I'll start with Jim. When did you get started in milk testing? About what time period?
I started in 1948, the year that I graduated from high school in Grantsville, Maryland, and I tested milk for 3 years, and I was at what was titled an advanced registry milk testing, and I traveled all over the state of Maryland with the exception of Allegheny and Garrett County to test milk.
How about you, Henry?
I was in FFA at the Damascus High School, and we had a centrifuge there, everything involved in milk testing. My advisor at Damascus High School at the time was Bill Miles, and we just did rudimentary things, given an idea of what was needed to test for butterfat.
About what year was this?
I graduated from Damascus High School in 1954, so I was in the program there from like 1950 to 54 in there.
And how about milk testing?
Now, when I milk tested,
What year?
I got out of the service in 1959. Tough finding a job there. 59 to 60, the winter was very tough. I was a heavy equipment operator. I couldn't find a job anywhere then because everything was frozen. But anyhow, I had a number of friends in the dairy farmers and whatnot. I think Duck Johnson said something to me. Duck was a good friend. They had a farm at Cedar Grove, So he suggested I try out for milk testing. So they give a program over at the University of Maryland. I think it was a week long. And I drove back and forth every day for a week. And they run you through the whole program so you'd be certified to be a milk tester. So,
How about you, Jim?
Well, a little different, yes. In 1948, when I was a senior in high school at 17 years of age, my agriculture teacher, Burl Garlis, kind of suggested to me that the University of Maryland was giving a week course in milk testing, and kind of looking out for me, I think, why he suggested I go to the University of Maryland to take that milk testing course. And in fact, he also suggested, because it was just starting in Garrett County, artificial insemination, so 6 months later I took the artificial insemination, but a job opened up when I graduated in June. Then that was when I became employed by the University of Maryland.
How long did you stay with them for that?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. When you all did milk testing, who did you work for, and who paid you? Henry?
you're asking me? Worked through the county extension service, but the farmers paid us, each individual farmer. You were paid so much for each cow, if I remember correctly. Maybe some mileage, I'm not sure about that. If you ate meal there, you deducted something. If you didn't do it, you added something to the program. You didn't get rich at it for sure. The main problem I had, you never got up 2 mornings in a row at the same time. So you better have a good alarm clock. Well, my phone rang one morning. Wait, you don't know where you are? Doc Johnson on the phone. Said, no, I think it was June. He said, we're milking over here. I said, what time is it? And I forget what time he said, 6:30 or whatever. I said, it can't be. He said, it is here in Cedar Grove. So I get my clothes on real quick and drove over there. But one of my most memorable times, I had a couple was testing milk there right behind where Roy Stanley's house is now. The dairy sitting right down in that bottom. Well, I knew my old Oldsmobile that I used for my transportation back then was low on gas, and I forgot to get gas that evening. And when I thought about it that evening, every gas station in Damascus was closed by then. I said, well, maybe I can get over in the morning. Well, I got about halfway there. Halfway between Hawkins Creamery Road and Damascus on 124, the olds quit on me. Well, there's nothing to do. Got it over on the shoulder, and I hiked myself in the darkness to where I was going. And I thought it was just a short jaunt across there. Well, that turned into about a mile of briars. So I didn't have a light, and it was still dark. But I got over an old Roland Few, who was the dairyman there. He was weighing and taking a sample. So I thought that was pretty good of him.
And then, Jim, you actually worked for the University of Maryland then?
Yes, I was strictly under the premises work employment of the Dairy Extension Service, Marvin Singer in charge, and so they employed me to make my schedule to do what I would do each month.
So, Jim, you got all your equipment from the University
Everything
of Maryland.
supplied by them.
Okay. And how about you, Henry?
Everything came to the extension service there at Rockville. You went down to the extensions right there. And was it in the courthouse building then?
Pardon?
I say, was the extension service located in the courthouse building in Rockville at that time? I can't remember. I believe it was.
I believe it was.
Yeah. But all of the supplies, everything you needed, you picked up there, except for the sulfuric acid. and we had to go somewhere, and I don't, but I kept a carboy, which was in a cradle, at my house, so all the other testers had to come to my house to get their supply. We generally kept it, your supply, in a, like a gallon glass jug, a heavy glass jug, and you put that in some other container where it wouldn't flop over and eat the trunk out of your car.
Henry, what did you basically take to the farm with you?
Everything you needed, all these items that you see
Well,
here today.
Just name me 4 items.
Well, you had scales, you had a 5-gallon
Bucket?
stainless steel bucket.
Mm-hmm.
You had a dipper with a little handle on it about that long that you dip the milk out and put it in this sample jar here.
Mm-hmm.
I had a stand that I made myself that I could write on, and I had a barn worksheet that you put all the information on, which was later transferred over into your herd book. Of course, you had sulfuric acid with you and all the equipment needed to test milk.
Now, Jim, how did you get your assignments?
How'd I get my assignment?
How'd you get
They
your
were
assignments?
given to me each month by the University of Maryland Extension Service. There was actually 3 of us employed that would cover the whole state of Maryland, as I say, to do specific herds that were on this advanced registry milk testing, where the farmer had selected certain cows that he wanted to prove that they were good. So it was a little different that way.
How about you, Henry? How did you get your assignments?
I just inherited actually a boy named Bob Franklin, I believe, was the tester before me, and he just abruptly quit. So, I mean, they give me all the list of the farmers he had, and I went to work.
I see.
Mr. Charles Monk Savage helped me a lot with getting started and everything, and some of the farmers and whatnot. And I knew of some of the farmers, but Monk introduced me to a lot of them and whatnot, and was really helpful in getting me started.
Muck was a part of the Savage farm that was right on down the road from this farm.
That is very true.
And so just basically, what were the basic tests? Jim, just what were the basic tests that you did on
Percentage
on a
of
cow?
butter fat.
Percentage of butter fat.
Yeah, that was in the milk of that separate milk from that cow.
Okay, and what about how
And
much?
the weight.
And the weight. How much the
She
cow?
produced in 24 hours.
Okay.
The process was you went to a farm in the evening, and you took a sample of every cow that was milked. Which would fill this bottle about half full. This kept to be kept cool. If you didn't have a farm, some of the farms had refrigerators there in their parlor, in their dairy or whatnot. Otherwise, you had to take it home and put it in the refrigerator to keep it cool. Take it back out in the morning and take it with you. That same cow's milk went in that bottle, and the two
In
of
the
them.
other half of the bottle.
That's correct.
So that it's one bottle for that cow.
That's correct.
Okay, and did you measure how much milk she gave
Yes, you weighed
that evening?
that evening. You went back in the morning and did the same process.
How was she milked? By vacuum milking?
Yes.
Okay, and you poured it into what to weigh it?
You had a 5-gallon stainless steel bucket.
And you knew what that weighed, right?
Yes, it was.
So-
Your scale was set to allow for the weight of the bucket.
Oh, okay, so you had a scale that started at the weight of the bucket.
Yeah,
It was zeroed at the
that's
weight of the
correct.
bucket.
Yes.
All right,
Bill, before you go on there,
sure.
in Henry's discussion of it, for the Dairy Herd Improvement Association, as it was called, in my work on advanced registry milk testing, we had to be at the farm for 3 milkings. So if you went there in the evening, afternoon milking, you would get what we called a preliminary milking. I was to see that the cow was dry, milked completely out. And then the next morning and the next night was the 24 hours of their production. Well, it meant that I had to do on that farm the records, do the test and the records, and either decide to get to the next farm that night or would get up early, very early, and drive to that next farm in the morning. So that was a, quote, my disadvantage of being an advanced registry milk tester.
I didn't know.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Before my time.
Now, I'd like to know where this data went that you wrote down, the results of the test. Who all got those?
Well, mine was, I sent the records to the University of Maryland dairyman, and he then would send it to the respective dairy association.
By association?
The Holstein Association, the Guernsey Association, the Brown Swiss Association, the Jersey Association, and the Ayrshire Association.
Did your results and test results go into a newspaper?
No.
Okay, how about you? Okay, and you left the records with the farmer, correct? And you sent it in to the University of Maryland.
Yes.
And who all did they share it with? The Holstein Association and anybody? How
Well,
about
if they were a Holstein, if they were testing
Registered.
just Holsteins at that farm, everything that I sent in went to the Holstein Association.
all right. How about you, Henry? Where all did your results get recorded?
You had a barn worksheet, and that was transferred to the herd book, which is generally I took it home and did that, and did all the work here.
Is this the example of
That is-
herd book?
That is a herd book.
Could you open it up and just show a page?
This is the Stuart Walker Farm, Mendelssohn Terrace Dairy Farm in Browningsville, Maryland. And it lists each cow on the farm, the freshening date, the dried off dates, how much the milk gives for her whole, I was going to say gestation, but that's not, what am I looking for?
Year, 365 days.
Well, wasn't necessarily 365, but anyhow, the period she was in milking before she freshened and had another calf and whatnot. But that's all recorded on here.
Okay.
But it made me.
So you put it in the farmer's herd book.
Yes.
Then did you keep a record of it?
Not personally, no.
So just the farmer
That's
got
right.
it. He paid for the results and he got them.
This was a voluntary program. Nobody forced the farmers to do it. They did it on their own through the extension service. Farmer paid the milk tester. If you ate there, that was good. But anyhow, that's where it was for the farmer for breeding and culling. The cows wasn't
You used
doing up
that
the barn.
data.
She wasn't yielding another butterfat, everything.
So it's like
Get her out of there and have a productive cow in there.
it's like Stuart said here. They used that to pick the high production
It's-
cows to breed and get the next generation of calves into their herd. And the ones that weren't high producers, they didn't keep those calves.
That is correct, and you had a record right there in front of you so you could follow it.
Henry, your records would also include, you got information from the farmer about how much feed concentrates they were eating, so that your records showed whether that cow was, quote, being profitable.
Yeah.
Whereas
That is right.
in my work with the advanced registry, the farmer fed all the concentrates that the cow would eat because all he was interested in was to get as much milk as he could. We even had some farms who kept their cows in a box stall, maybe as big as this room, and the cow was let loose all the time in that box stall. And couple of them even hand milked it, thinking that they would get more milk in 24 hours out of that cow. But
Strip them out.
yeah,
Ralph and Grover Walker, till the day they sold their herd, they stripped every cow after they took the milkers off.
All right, I think we're going to take a little break here for a moment, and we're going to set up some equipment here on the table, and we're going to just discuss in a little bit more detail sort of how these tests were done. All right, we've got a few pieces of equipment here on the table. I'll ask Henry just to point to the three things and tell what they are, and then he's going to tell you about how he did the quantity test for the cow, and then how he did his butterfat test. All right, Henry.
I'm Henry King. I've just got to Mr. Johnson's farm in the evening. We're going to milk the cows. We poured from the milker into this bucket. We hang it on a scale and weigh it. I don't have a little dipper, but we had a dipper that you dip it out of there. You fill this sample jar half full. This process is repeated again in the morning. The same cow goes in here. The weight of the cow's milk.
And how did you keep track of that sample?
Well, I had my method.
But you had a rack like this, sort of, and you put a number on it or something, Henry?
This has been 60-some years since I did this, so I'm going to do the best I can here.
No problem.
But I had a method of numbering these here, and I could reach in that thing blindfolded and put out what I wanted. Anyhow, you did that. Like I say, you did the same thing in the morning again. So we're through that part now.
So now we got the quantity. Did you record that in pounds?
In pounds of milk,
Okay.
and then we'll get into the testing this. Now later on, well even then, we had a lot of farms that were switching over to pipelines. So you didn't have this bucket. We had what was called a milkometer that you hung at each stanchion, or in the case of a milking parlor, say if you had a double six, you had six. You hung a little bracket that this milkometer went in, and the milk flowed through that and measured it, and it had a little sample nipple on it that took the sample off of it.
Did the extension service provide you with that device?
Yes. Yeah. They were pretty expensive.
Okay.
Okay, we're through milking and everything. Now we want to run a butterfat test. I'm going to try to go through this procedure with. I think Jim told me you wanted to warm the milk up to
160 degrees.
160 degrees.
The water.
Yes, the water. So you do that. Let me see what we have here. To get the sample into these sample bottles here, you had to use a pipette. If I get it out of here. This was all inside this centrifuge. It had been sitting there all them years. So anyhow, you had a thermometer so you could know what the temperature of the water was.
And where was the water?
Well, you're right there at the farm.
Oh, okay.
You get hot. Most of them have a heater there that you could heat your hot water to whatever temperature you wanted off the hot water heater.
And what'd you use the water for, Henry?
to warm the milk up to a certain temperature.
By setting it down.
Yeah, you can put it in this water
Oh.
bath. This is.
Oh, okay.
See?
In other words, you've got hot water in there
Mm-hmm.
and you don't bring it up close to the top.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and you heat it up to 160 degrees.
That's the water.
The water.
So you got to bring this up to a certain temperature then, and use this pipette.
Henry, when you're talking there, because I was describing to my daughter how to do this, and I used the word, you suck up the milk. She said, Dad, you sucked up the milk? I said, yes, you sucked it up and you knew when to stop.
You would take this pipette, put it in here, cap it off, put the pipette in here, break it up. There's a certain amount of milk that you drew up in here, and you put that certain amount in the, so you know what this is for, and I'm going to move this out of the way now because it's a little bit. Then you have these, a rack with 24 bottles in it. Now maybe you didn't need 24, but you had methods of doing that.
It was a safe way to handle them.
So we got these test bottles. They're calibrated. Everyone is calibrated on the neck here. Where's my? I had some calipers here somewhere.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyhow, so you got the milk. You got it warm. You got 20. Say you got 24 cows. You got 24 bottles here with the correct amount of milk in it. Now you got to put, and we don't have this here today. We use sulfuric acid. You have a little glass dipper with a little lip on it that you put so much sulfuric acid in the bottle here. Did that to every one of them. This is called a shaker. You take this thing and just
Get the sulfuric mixed
mix that
into the...
sulfuric acid good with the milk.
Wow. And Henry, there's a specific amount of milk in that,
Oh yeah.
what you sucked up, you suck it up to a certain point.
Right,
And
exactly.
then,
And you put it in here.
Right there's a little mark, right there. You suck that much,
until it comes up to that.
up to there.
Now I generally sucked a little more because you release a little air and drop it right on the button. So we got this all stirred up, and on the next process, I don't know whether they can hear me back here or not, with my back turned to it. Next process was to take these bottles and put them in a centrifuge. This is a small centrifuge. It only has 12 cups. The centrifuges we used were electric, and they were 24. The trick is here, if you didn't use 12 or 24, you had to have it balanced on the other side. So if you got two there, you wanted to put two opposite. Otherwise, you could get a lot of wobbling in here, and you didn't want that. With the electric centrifuge,
Well, now you're going to demonstrate the centrifuge, all right?
electric centrifuge, I forget just how long you turned it on for.
3 minutes,
Was it 3 minutes?
5 minutes, and 3 minutes.
5 minutes and 3 minutes.
Because you added more water in between there. No, you did it the first time, and yeah, you had to add, if you had to add more milk to it to bring the fat up in the test tube.
I don't remember that way. You may be correct there. But anyhow, in the centrifuge, this is two, and you got the sulfuric acid in there. Butterfat is lighter than milk. It's going to come up in the neck of this. Yeah. So you put them in here. This is a hand crank job. And it tells you on the handle here 80 turns a minute. Now I timed myself last evening. You got to crank this thing. But you're not messing around. I mean, it's on.
80 a
Never
minute
had
is
it
40
crank
in 30 seconds, and so it's 20 in 15 seconds, right?
It's flying. But they tell you not to exceed certain speeds too. So you do this for, did Jim say 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever?
All right, that's good, Henry.
So you got that done. Then you take your bottles out. And I don't know what the next process. So you had to, I guess the easiest thing to do was put them back in this shaker rack after you. So the butterfat would be up in the neck of this. You'd measure with the calipers, however high it was, and then bring it down to the bottom and measure up. And it would tell you whether it was 3.2 or 3.6, or in case of a Jersey or Guernsey cow, it could well be 6%, or in that 6.5%, maybe even 7, possibly.
Possibly.
At Guernsey or Jersey.
How about the Holsteins on the average?
Average around 3.6 in that neighborhood.
And so just the numbers on that, what do you call that glass?
Test tube.
Just
Test tube?
Yeah.
You just measure the depth of the thickness of the
Yeah,
cream,
The butterfat's going to be up in here.
and then put it on the bottom, and the number at the top
measure
is
it,
your butterfat.
And then you start down here at the bottom with it.
0. Bottom is 0.
Bottom is 0.
That's right. And measure it right up here and record that on your worksheet.
By tenths.
Right? Yes, exactly.
All right. Jim, would you like to stand up there and just give us sort of the procedure you went through?
Well, he done such a good job of everything with it.
Well,
I don't know too much to add, except that I had a 24 electric one, and perhaps sulfuric acid was used because it was heavier and separated the milk from the fat from the milk, was why you used sulfuric acid. And that, as Henry had said in there, you didn't want to spill it or get it on your clothes, because like I did sometimes, I had holy clothes from on there.
And
But-
that wasn't for going to church either, was it?
So then you had to empty that out, just destroy it, and wash your equipment out before you went to the next farm. But I think the exact same stuff was used that I did. I could only test a specific number, maybe 24 I think was the max that I had. If the farmer had 30 cows on test, which was unusual, I'd had to stay there over again. But the biggest, one of the things with advanced registry, I recall I had some farms that only had 6 cows. They just had the cows to make records. They had an occupation someplace else, so you only had 6 tubes to fill. That made an easy work day for me. But that's the exact same procedure.
Now I had herds from little family herds, 25 or 30 cows, all the way up to Beal Brothers. That time was considered a monster operation. They were milking over 400 cows. They had a double 12 parlor. It took 2 milk testers. My brother Jimmy and I did it. We'd both get down in the pit there, and it kept us moving, because them boys, they didn't mess around. So
My work never included milk parlors. They weren't invented yet in 1950.
I think Sam and Bobby Ann Stiles had the first milking parlor that I knew of. And of course, you knew those folks very well. They're at Goshen. Of course, sometimes it'd show up at the farm, and in the summertime it would be a 100-degree day, and you heard it from the farmer, the hottest damn day of summer, and here you show up to test my milk. I can't control the weather, Ollie, and I won't go any further with who Ollie might be.
Any other little short stories that, or any other comments you'd like to make, Jim, about?
Well, an interesting thing that I thought, institutions in Maryland, the prisons, Jessup's Farm Dairy had their own dairy, Breathinsville Prison had their own dairy, McDonough School, which was just a regular school, had their own dairy, Naval Academy had their own, and so...
And the University of Maryland, right? University
of Maryland, of course, had their own, and so a lot of these just had their own setups in there, but everyone could have stories, and I won't get into any particular one of those.
Now, I made a list of the dairy farms that I could remember that I tested over a period of 8 years, and I think I have something like 42 scattered all over Montgomery County.
But you didn't go to 42, you went to 20-some or so.
This is
This
is over a period of 8 years.
Oh,
40 different farms he did
Okay.
testing that over.
some stopped.
But I have carried, I worked sometimes without a break, months at a time. I was carrying 30, 31 herds. I had a couple of small ones that milk laid or whatever, like Big Bill King, there at Morrison Grove. They milked at 2 and 2. 2 in the afternoon,
Yeah.
2 in the morning. Well, they had a dairyman, you know. That's all he did, was taking care of those cows. I could finish there, run the test and everything, drive over to Olney and test Joe Giesman's 30 cows, and then do all that and then go home and eat my breakfast.
I recall trying to do and did that once or twice, but the dairy extension man said, "You're employed 26 days. I'm paying you 26 days, not for 28 days because you work more cows."
We were paid by the farmers. That didn't, you know, that wasn't involved that way. But it was busy. I was living in the house that had been in off and on in my family for over 100 years. I was renting it from my uncle there on Hawkins Creamery Road. And lots of times I would take it home with me and run the test at home when I had more time. Well, if you take this milk that's had sulfuric acid in it and dump it out somewhere, and I always went around behind the garage, and it doesn't smell very good. Farmer, you could always tell when the milk test had been there if you had dumped it down the drain there in the dairy. But anyhow, many years later, my son had bought this house where I had rented many years earlier. He said, "Dad," he said, "we're trying to grow flowers around the garage. They won't grow in it." I said, "That's where I was dumping sulfuric acid and milk out." I said, "Never, you got to dig all that out and put in some good dirt."
Yeah. All right. I think this has been wonderful. It will sure give a person a very realistic understanding of what milk testing was all about and why it was done and so forth. And so I want to thank each of you for coming. Mr. Pope, I want to thank you for coming, and Henry, I want to thank you, and Stuart Walker, I want to thank you for coming down. And this is a first for me, and so I'm kind of excited to see how it turns out. Anyway, well, thank you all very much.
I'll make a little note, and I read some of it. I was looking at that whole list of dairy 42 of them. Every one of those farmers have passed and gone. Every one of them. A good portion of those dairy farms, those dairy barns, are gone, wiped off the face of the earth. Hassan's farm was a big farm there in Germantown.
Yeah.
Seneca Valley High School was sitting in the spot where that dairy barn was. Monk Savage's barn is gone. I could just go on and on and on about them. Marshall White's over at Barnesville. You never know it was ever existed. Just like here, unless, this is preserved, but if it wasn't, I mean,
Gone.
it's gone. Gone.
The dairy industry in Montgomery County, Henry, rose starting in 1910, and the production went up, and it rose steadily till 1952. There were 326 farms shipping milk in Montgomery County in 1952, and after that it started going steadily down. In the 1980s, there was a federal buyout program that took 8, I think, out of this county, and we came right on down to the year 2000. In the year 2000, we had about 5 farmers still shipping milk. Dave Weitzer over here near Poolsville, Savages, Mount Ephraim, Artie Johnson,
Arthur
Mount
Johnson Jr.
Ephraim, or Dickerson, Wayne Warfield over on 108 east of Damascus,
Yeah.
and I think that's about it. Now we come from 2000 to 2022. Artie Johnson's milking about 20 high-end cows. The Savages are milking there, but they've got a problem with bacteria, and their milk is not going to the fluid milk market.
What did they do with the milk?
It's going up to a place where they make cheese, and then they're selling some then.
I made a note here.
Which Savages are you mentioning?
Well, it's
Kevin.
Calvin.
Kevin Savage.
It's Kevin and his brother, but Kevin.
Wayne?
The brother's out of it. Kevin's the only one involved in it now.
It was George Savage's
Okay.
Monk's
no.
children.
Yes, no.
Yeah, it's his grandchildren.
Grandchildren.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
question that I have, Henry, that maybe you know, are any of these tests, DHIA, HIR, and AR, done at all anymore? Well, I guess there's only 5 herds in Montgomery County, so they wouldn't do it.
I made a note here on the bottom of this.
There's not 5 herds now.
Only 3?
It's only 2.
Well, I said, and I
Only
didn't.
one shipping to the milk market,
Well.
Jim.
I got all these listed down here and where the farms were and whatnot. And I made a note at the bottom. At that time, back in the 60s, there were 4 DHIA testers, each one of them carrying 25 to 30 herds. As of this writing in October of 2022, there is 1 dairy herd in Montgomery County, Arthur Johnson Jr. of Dickerson, Maryland. I didn't include the Savages because they're
They're not shipping Class A.
no,
Fluid
that's
milk.
correct. And the main reason that Arthur and Bobby are in business, they do the embryo transfers with their cows. They were milking 15 to 16, something like that. And it's not really the milk that they're after, it's
Oh, sure.
it's
The
the
breeding and the cows.
breeding end of it, yeah.
Good in cows.
Yeah. Anyhow, I paid my bills for 8 years doing this, and Here we are with a bunch of old folks here,
Yep.
me included.
All right, well, that wraps us up, and I thank everybody for coming, and I hope people will enjoy this if we can make it into a video. All right,